One of my quotes states, "The perception of your mind becomes your reality." Again, the perception of your mind becomes your reality. It's like the writing that you notice, the small writing on your rear view mirror. Objects in mirror are closer than they appear. Everything comes down to what you see and how you process that information as it's related to your life. Whenever you talk to someone who has achieved any level of greatness in their lives, you will notice the way they think are totally different in relation to individuals who are mediocre or subpar in their lives. They have a totally different mindset. Your reality is essentially what you make it, and it's absolutely subjective. Your life is whatever you perceive it to be. Sadly enough, you are not consciously aware that you hold the power over your life. And if you don't like how things are presently constructed in your life, you can simply change your perception and therefore change your life. You remember the quote by Henry Ford, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, either way, you're right." Whatever you say, that's exactly how it will be in your life. If you can simply believe that you can change your life, you are halfway to your goal already. If you simply believe, accept it as true, accept something as true, feel sure of the truth. There's this quote by Nelson Mandela. He says, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Even if things presently in your outward world seems to be chaotic, you can simply go within and influence your true self, your inner being, that part that nobody can observe with their eyes. That's your true self. Go into that place and construct the life you desire to have with all of the feeling and emotions associated with your desire fulfilled. Behave, act like you are presently experiencing your desire fulfilled, not as if it's at a distance or a daydream separate from you, but actually as if you are right now experiencing it. When you do that, you will certainly experience it in your life. That process is how you have received everything that you presently have in your life. But you have been operating on autopilot, unaware of the law that what you continually see and feel to be real, you will eventually experience. I remember an interview of Mike Tyson. He was being interviewed, and he was talking about his early life and how he was desolate, how his mom and dad were involved in certain activities that would be frowned upon, very poor, and didn't have the education that others who succeeded in life have that at their disposal, and how he used to steal and do various illegal things when he was a kid. But he talked about when he was locked up at an early age in a juvenile detention center of sorts. And during that time, he fell in love with boxing. And he met Cus D'Amato, a famed trainer. And he's talked about how he saw himself and developed this inner awareness within himself. And he projected what he saw on the inside to his actual life, his outward appearance. He talked about how he saw himself as a god. And when other fighters challenged him, his mindset was, how could they dare to even challenge him? He thought he was that great. How dare you challenge me? And during this interview, he went on to say that he had to visualize and see himself bigger in his mind than he actually was physically, because he's of short stature. I don't think he's 6 feet. Because compared to other boxing champions, he was smaller and they were larger in stature. So he had to become bigger in his mind in order to boost his self-confidence. He also talked about how Cus D'Amato kept telling him that he was going to be the heavyweight champion of the world when he was only 13 years old. And when he was not a good fighter yet, he was getting beaten by other fighters his age because he didn't have the technical skills. They weren't developed yet. He was in the infancy. So during that state, he was far from being a champion, but the legendary Cus D'Amato was telling him, you're going to be the heavyweight champ of the world. Essentially, the constant hearing and eventually believing what he heard influenced his subconscious mind and created the life he envisioned for himself. So what are you hearing? What are you saying to yourself? You answer those questions, those two questions. What are you hearing? And what are you saying to yourself? If you are truthful with yourself, you will say that you are constantly hearing and saying more negative words to yourself. And if that's the case, you are receiving the same in your life. The negativity, the doubt. You're constantly, repetitiously engraving that in your subconscious mind. Unconsciously, you're just doing this out of habit throughout the years, through habit, and you're going in the opposite direction of where you really want to go. You have to increase your conscious awareness of what you're saying to yourself. The moment you take control of your mind is the very moment you become free and an unstoppable force in your life. So begin saying good and uplifting things to yourself. After all, what do you have to lose besides an old self-defeating mind state? It's time to begin creating a new world for yourself. Get in the habit of placing into daily practice the things that you've been learning on this podcast. It can and will change your old mind state if you believe in what you're doing and take it seriously. You don't have to wait to change your life. Wait till the right circumstances arise, because it never will. That's the truth of the matter. I remember before I began college, I said to myself, well, I'm going to begin when I get enough money, when this happens, when I get this job, when I get that job. But nothing seemed to ever line up perfectly how I desired for it to line up in order for me to start. So one day I just said, I'm just going to do this. And when I registered and went through the process, I noticed that things began to shape the way I wanted it to. Like the job I got a job, hours were flexible, and I could work and go to school and so forth. But until I made that step, until I made that conscious decision to just go for it, nothing changed. My life changed when I began. So you have to do something. You have to take the first step in order to change your life, which you can do. I know sometimes when you begin a new journey or a new way of thinking, it can be difficult to sustain your momentum, especially if you don't have access to someone who's like-minded. You could be around people, friends, family, whoever. They are comfortable with the life they have, even though you want something greater. You feel within yourself that there has to be something greater for me. I want to reach a certain goal, and you don't have that like-mindedness. It could be difficult. So you have to cultivate an environment for yourself to be around like-minded people. Experience it in your mind and in your heart constantly, and it will show up in your life. But I could help you out. So this is what I would like you all to do. I'd like you to send in any questions you have that will help you gain more insight and help you achieve your goals in life. Anything that could help you on your journey, questions that you might have, send it in to me. And after I've received your questions, I will dedicate a podcast episode dedicated to answering your questions. So don't hesitate. Whenever you become inspired to act on something, always move quickly. Otherwise, you'll lose that inspiration and that momentum. So if you feel something, you're like, I need to know this, or I need to know X, Y, or Z, ask that question. Send me those questions, and I'll certainly answer your questions for you. Who knows, having your questions answered could help someone else who could be struggling for answers. Be proactive and start the process today to begin your new mind creation. And remember to join me again next week for an all-new episode. I would like to thank you for listening to the New Mind Creator podcast with your host, Maurice. This podcast has been sponsored by Abundant Sports. Subscribe to my podcast and leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, and Pocket Casts. Head over to www.mauriceflournoy.com to find out more about my services and receive more motivation and insight to help create your new mind.